Hello, fellow preppers, folks who are interested in SMART, getting prepared for what may or may not happen. This is David, and I'm the preparedness therapist, and we're here to talk about Faraday cages, and not so much about Faraday cages, but about some of the ramifications of what those are. I would encourage you to go to the internet and research Faraday cages right now. There's a lot of good websites and information out there. There's a lot of spurious information as well. Some not so good information. From everything that I can tell, a Faraday cage needs to be fully enclosed, including the seals, so as to direct the impulse, the electromagnetic impulse, away from whatever is inside. Now it can be just a small box, just a few inches square, or it can be as large as a room or a building even. But I would encourage you to look up Faraday cages and study those. We're not going to talk much more about those, but we are going to talk about the electromagnetic pulse. Now, there are three phases of the pulse that occurs when an EMP is actuated. The first pulse is called the E1 pulse, and it actually is just a nanosecond worth. What that does, that's the most important thing for you and I, most of us, as far as how it's going to impact us personally, because that's going to get our small electronic circuits. And like I said, that's just a nanosecond. That just happens quicker than you can blink an eye or snap your finger. The E2 pulse is what happens when it comes just directly following the E1 pulse, and it impacts the power lines. And that happens micro to milliseconds, so not even a second again. But that's going to impact the power lines, and so that will impact us in a bigger way, more of society. And then the third impulse or pulse, the E3 pulse, impacts the Earth's magnetic field itself. And that takes anywhere from a millisecond to seconds. But you can see that within seconds, everything that the EMP is going to impact, it's already done its job, and then the results of that are going to continue on and on for days to weeks to months to years. And so the EMP is something that we shouldn't take lightly. It's really not only something preppers are concerned about. The military, the weather folks, people that have satellites, communications, all of us are worried about EMPs. Now, let's talk about, where does an electromagnetic pulse originate from? There's 6 different ways, primary ways that we can get an EMP, and we generally only talk about 3 of them. A nuclear detonation is one, and when a nuclear bomb goes off, it also sets off an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP. And also a high altitude nuclear bomb or nuclear detonation. And that's what we oftentimes think of. That's what I've heard of the most, is that when man creates an EMP, mankind, that we create it by setting off a nuclear explosion high in the air, and depending on how high it is, that's how far the impact goes. So we've got the nuclear bombs, the high altitude nuclear explosions, and then we also have the natural EMP that comes from the coronal mass ejections from the sun, or solar flares, and we hear about those occasionally too, don't we? And so those are the 3 primary that we talk about. But there's 3 other ways that we have EMPs come to us. Number 1 is lightning. Lightning creates an electromagnetic impulse. And so even if we're not expecting something from the sun or nuclear explosions, wherever there's lightning, whenever there's lightning, we need to expect that there might be an EMP that will influence our electronics or the electrical grid around us, and maybe even to some degree that just the Earth's magnetic field, even if just briefly. So lightning is a 4th one, something we don't often talk about. EM weapons, electromagnetic weapons, are also created by governments, and they're used by military. that's something. It's not a nuclear explosion. It's a weapon that is designed to emit an electromagnetic pulse. And I haven't really heard a lot about those. That's something I'd like to research more into. But that's something that is accessible through our through the military, through the research that's done. And then the sixth way is there's certain devices that are created as electromagnetic interference devices. And those are meant to hurt us at a personal level, to interfere with any kind of radio waves or communications that occur in more of a local situation. So there's, those 6 ways. Like I say, I've heard of the 2 forms of nuclear detonation in the sun with the coronal mass ejections and solar flares. Haven't really thought about that there are weapons that are created to emit an electromagnetic pulse. So, it behooves us as individuals interested in preparedness to look into this, but this is one of those topics that frankly you can look into and not be weird, right? Not be like so off base. Not many people do actually go to the point of making a Faraday cage. But I think all those people that don't are going to be sorry someday. Guaranteed. All the power companies have Faraday cages. The governments have Faraday cages. It's not anything that the scientists say is weird. It's something they take. So that's our discussion for today. Thanks for watching. Go to my blog, thepreparednesstherapist.blogspot.com. I've also got a podcast, The Preparedness Therapist, on Spotify. And look for my books on Amazon. The more of us who are prepared, the better all of us are going to be. And I just hope that we can get the word out and get people excited to do this. Thanks for listening.